Welcome to the RackForms Build 788 Build Tour. I'm your host, Matt Grodinnik, lead developer at RackForms. Essentially what we do in these videos is we talk about the latest release of RackForms, talk about what's new and some of the fixes, so that if you're upgrading or thinking about upgrading, you'll get the most bang for your buck, as it were. So this was a pretty big release, so big in fact that we had 3 smaller versions or builds kind of get rolled up into one. So the released version was build 788. This is what you could download from the site. However, it also included build 787 and 86. And so we'll just kind of start with 786 here. So first and foremost, we had a couple fixes here. We addressed several German calendar issues. We had a few issues with jQuery validation, and also the build repeater queries being created with the wrong table name. All these issues, of course, have been fixed. The main point of 786, though, was the features that we added. So we had a couple small and a couple big ones. So as far as the smaller features, we've added token support for confirmation pages in the JavaScript headcode block. This is useful for those times you want to mix and match PHP and JavaScript on our confirmation pages. And this is very common if we wanted to show like custom user information, for example, for something that they just signed up for. We've also added a feature for numbering questions on survey items. So this is a simple feature, but it's really nice because it allows your survey users to much more easily follow your survey by referring to specific questions. Turning it off and on is very simple. We just go down to the survey options, and we can just simply toggle on number of questions. Now, because this is RackForms, we actually give you a lot of power here. So this is actually driven on a template system. So you can actually control the exact look of your numbering using that template. We had a couple major features then. So we've added multiple AJAX modules can process the same target. Essentially what this means is in RackForms, we've long since had the ability to have multiple parameters drive an AJAX item. So for example, you could have 3 select items, and each one of those select items provides a value to the AJAX query. For example, like if you're building a car form, you could say year, make, and model. The new feature is that now a single item can be driven from multiple AJAX modules. And perhaps the best way to show that is with the demo here. So if I have a select item, there are 2 AJAX modules watching this select item so that when I select a name, we update this emails field and this ages field right here. In a lot of ways, it's a simple change, but it's an incredibly powerful change because now the RackForms AJAX module can have multiple inputs and multiple outputs. It's incredibly powerful and very, very much flexible. We've also added the ability to add email plus items to standard form pages. This is really nice because there are going to be times when, especially in longer forms, you want to send out an email, right? Like maybe you made it to a certain stage in the form. You just want to say, you've made it here so far. And we can now very easily add this email item to a page and use all of the email options that we have for Email Plus for our form emails. So we can use SMTP, etc. A lot of features here. Very, very nice. One of the things I actually like to point out is that I can create a form page like this right here, and I can actually add an Email Plus item to this very simple form page. The idea here being is that I can actually call this page at any point that I want to send out an email. And again, this is more of a programmer's type feature, but it's incredibly powerful to be able to send out custom emails whenever we want. We've also added a query module option for selecting how we want to pre-populate form fields. So RackForms has once again long since had the ability to run a database query and then populate form fields dynamically based on the results of that query, right? So it looks at the columns that database queries return and it'll pre-populate form fields. This new feature is we have a much more advanced way of doing that. So as a quick demonstration, I have a query module that's essentially selecting product descriptions from a list of products, and we can now select which one of those products that we want. Again, this is a very advanced feature, so I definitely suggest you take a look at the example job, which we can always find under load example job, and just type in query and then select query simple list mode. Finally, this is a really neat one. We've added PayPal Express checkout for subscriptions. So if we have a subscription that we want to supply to our users, it used to be that we had to use Stripe to do that. We can now select PayPal Express Checkout. If you've never used PayPal Express Checkout, that simply means that I could select an item, and then RackForms automatically creates an invoice where we can pay with the credit card directly on the form. We don't have to redirect at all. We pay on your form. Incredibly convenient for users, and once again, really, really handy and powerful. Build 787 had one new major feature with HTML5 types. HTML5 types are neat because they kind of leverage the browser to a lot of the things that we used to have to use JavaScript for in the past. So for example, an HTML5 type, for example, would be color. So if I run this form, although Firefox doesn't support this type yet, if I load up Chrome right here, Chrome, because this is a type color, will give me a nice color chooser. The new option, and RackForms actually had that for a while, the new option is that now if I select range as my type, we actually get some options for it. So this is something that, again, I'm really excited about in that these HTML5 types are incredibly handy, and although they're not supported across all browsers yet, we want to make sure that as a RackForms user, you're not left waiting to have support for these fields. And so giving you the option to not only have HTML5 types, but also control the parameters of them is something that's really important to us and something we're really excited to get in your hands. Finally, Build 788 then was more about some fixes, and we had a small change. I only call this out because I think longtime RackForms users are going to love this. Now when I want to grab page embed code, instead of giving 2 prompts to get the code, we just click it once and we get our iframe code just like that. So sometimes it's the small things that really make a big difference. Finally, the last thing I wanted to do is just take a real quick look ahead to Build 792. The reason I'm doing that is there's some really neat changes in this, but also Build 792 is going to be released in just a few days. So I kind of wanted to get both of these in one shot here. So the first big feature here is we now have a new unified interface. Again, this is really only a matter for existing users, and especially longtime users. But essentially, when we have a job now, instead of the entire editor scrolling up and down when I scroll through a job, just this area scrolls right here, the form preview area. This makes it much, much easier to work with large jobs in RackForms because our editor interface never actually moves. It's just our work area. So I'm really excited about that. Again, simple things, but they can make a big difference. This is a bit of new functionality, though. The form blocks now support buckets, and they support all page types. It's interesting. Buckets are one of those kind of almost unsung heroes. Essentially, what they allow us to do is group a bunch of elements together on a sortable page. So here I've grouped all of these shipping detail items together. Form blocks are also unsung heroes, and that now, because we support buckets of free and sortable pages, we can do things like this. I can take this group of elements right here. I right click on my form and say create form blocks group. I'm then going to give this group a name. In this case, let's say shipping, and I'll then save the group. So what's happened? Well, let's say I have a new job right here, and I don't want to have to create that same shipping block again. All I have to do is right click on my page, say add form blocks group. I'll then select that group I just created, shipping, and now all of those items are transferred instantly to my page. Everything about them has stayed the same. All validation, any of the little helper text, etc. It's all there. These are an incredibly powerful feature of RackForms and allow you to do things, as we just saw, very quickly. But because they now support buckets, that is these guys right here, and because they support sortable items, they're much, much more flexible now. And if you're not using buckets, they are something you absolutely should be. They save so much time, and now with these new features, they're incredibly powerful because they allow you to save essentially any field type on any page type. So that's a quick look at Build 792. It is the 21st of February right now. I would expect this is going to be out in just a few days, probably the 25th or 26th at latest. So that is our quick look at Build 788 and then a look ahead to Build 792. Because if you have ever any questions about RackForms, we can always be reached at info@rackforms.com. Or if you have any questions that you want to handle via phone, sometimes talking is much easier than typing, our phone number is always at the top of our website at rackforms.com. And thanks for your time.